It has been a great workshop that we had here at the All-in Business School at Western University in St. Louis, organized by the Boeing Center on Supply Chain Innovation. We addressed issues on supply chain finance and risk management. And we had 40 thought leaders that participated in the workshop, and I have the more select among them to share some ideas about this very exciting field that definitely is impacting practice and is driving a lot of the research of our community. I will ask them to contribute their thoughts on the first question. What do they find exciting right now in what happens both in the practice and academia? And I will start with Matt Zobel.
What I find most exciting is that if I think back to how I would have answered the same question 20 or 30 years ago, I would have said that professional practice and research were a world apart and had virtually no impact on each other. And that what I find most thrilling about the workshop is that it reflected that that's completely changed now. And in some particular ways, practice is leading research. In other ways, research is leading practice. But there's, I think, a much, much healthier interaction between them.
That's great.
Yes, I mean, I agree that, there's a lot of practice-driven research going on. And I think right now, and I think it just is a result of both two-way communication. I think academics are more interested in practice, and practitioners are now also understanding the value of the academic research and how they can use it in their practice. To give a couple of examples, specific practices that excite me going forward. Several talks during the workshop mentioned reverse factoring, for instance, and that's also something that I researched on, and there's a lot of potential there. For instance, companies have been realizing that and applying that, but there's still a lot of problems to be solved. Implementation and dissemination of such practices, and I think a lot of practice right now employed in that area is influenced by academic research as well. Another practice, again, specific practice on that is supply chain financing through different contract structures. So we have been studying things like buyback contracts, for instance, for years, and then just recently we're seeing that, for instance, in another study that I have worked on, in Chinese automobile supply chains, they're using all these things that we've studied for years now: trade credit and buyback financing, buyback contracts, and everything to implement financing. So those are pretty thrilling to see. Again, this convergence of academia and practice.
Thank you, Panos. So I'll talk a little bit more about the connections and kind of the lessons that can be learned. I think that's one of the things that excited me about the workshop, because we as a field, operations management, operations research, have been learning a lot from finance during the years. But I think we can now return, and we have a lot of interesting lessons to teach to some of the finance academics and also the finance practitioners, because both in terms of the high-level lessons that can be learned from operations, I think the operational element to maybe better design contracts, going back to what Tunay was saying, ways in which we can mitigate certain frictions by adding operational details and guiding the design of particular lending contracts that can improve efficiency and potentially even lead to win-win. And I think we're seeing more of that in our community, which are messages that hopefully we can broadcast to the broader academic fields, finance and accounting being two prime examples. And the other thing that I saw a little bit of in this workshop, perhaps for the first time, maybe we saw a bit last year, but hopefully we'll see more of it, is the use of data and the use of analytics, which is something that we own as a field, to improve the way in which supply chain finance is done. And this also kind of breaches into things like financial technology and fintech, and these are there's a lot of activity in terms of startups and in terms of even established companies launching into fintech, and this is somewhere where our community can contribute quite a bit.
It's exciting to see how important supply chain financing has become for practice. I mean, I'm coming from Asia, Singapore, and I know per se a lot of banks have their own supply chain financing divisions, right? They take this business very seriously. Now, I'm really happy to see that. I mean, the way that we did research started with observing what banks are doing, right? And then now I think we kind of transformed in a place where we are the ones now teaching them something. It's really exciting to see all this creative work that is all presented in the workshop, right? Not only describing what has been done in practice, but now coming up with more innovative solutions. Even taking this to the banks, I'm pretty sure they're gonna be the whole industry will be benefiting from that. So it's kind of now the learning is also going to the other direction too. That's very exciting to see that. I think for me that was the main takeaway. Another exciting thing that I find is how actually companies are using supply chain financing in conjunction with, let's say, sustainability, right? So, I mean, if you follow the news, Puma, for example, now started running supply chain financing schemes and kind of relating the supplier credit terms based on sustainability performances. And I think we do have a lot of contribution to that, because this is the type of research that we do, interdisciplinary research, and that is how these companies actually learn from us, from academia, and start implementing these schemes. So I think that will be really an interesting area for us also to spend more time and understand, hopefully to see more papers related to that in the next event. So look forward to that. Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, as you think the next 5 years, what do you see is the best way that we can both influence the practice and drive the research, and what is the one theme that you think is the most important? I will again start with Matt.
I don't know about most important, but one theme that intrigues me is that on the one hand, viewed as part of operations research, we all come from traditions which include and pay a lot of attention to risk and uncertainty. And yet the overwhelming majority of the formalisms we use are based on an implicit assumption of risk neutrality. And I was very pleased to see some very clever, maybe sideways approaches to taking risk sensitivity into account. And what I hope is that during the next 5 years, we somehow become sufficiently clever and perhaps provoked by empirical observations of what's happening in practice, so that we become more adept at taking into account the risk sensitivity, which is always there in practice.
Yeah, I would actually say a stronger movement towards data, collaborating with companies to share data and kind of work on it. Now, a lot of us in the workshop, we come from theory backgrounds, and there's, again, a lot of very good theory that has been developed. But again, a lot of us are, also well equipped to take the next step and then actually kind of start working on real data, apply the theory, not necessarily start getting disconnected from theory, but apply the theory, learn from the theory, and kind of start testing some of the predictions that are coming from all these years of theory. So I think that's an important part that in the historically has had been missing in our field somewhat. But then in the last 5-10 years, we're seeing that actually we're now remedying that, and there's a big movement towards data and kind of like applying what we know to data and everything. And I think a really important part of it is actually talking to the companies. So that's another thing that I think I'm very glad to see that's happening more and more, and listening to them. I mean, asking them the question, what are the problems that you are interested in? What problems do you want us to solve? What are some of the constraints that you have in these problems to solve? Because a prevalent approach of many of us instinctively perhaps is going through the theoretical optima, like hypothetical optimal solutions and everything. But once you start talking to the companies, you start realizing, well, a lot of the theoretically optimal things are not necessarily directly applicable for all the practical constraints that the companies face. So a lot of companies start finding, clever ways to, like not necessarily obtain the theoretical optima, but then approximate that by, certain practices that they employ that we should learn, and then we should try to incorporate in our research. So I hope to see in the next 5 years, and I'm seeing more and more people talking to the companies and learning about their problems and getting data from them, and bringing the theory and practice and data together.
Well, Matt and Tunay have touched on a lot of the things that I wanted to say, or that could be said. I'll just add one more thing, which also goes back to Onur's point earlier. I think I would want to see us as a field doing a bit more research in terms of financing solutions, not just for large corporations dealing with large companies, but also financing for small farmers in a developing world, for instance, or thinking about the financing solutions at that level, which really brings both the intricacies about the supply chain design in particular industries, and also other issues such as sustainability, because when you look at the developing world, and which is still providing a huge part of the commodities that fuel many industries, that's also where a lot of bad things happen in terms of the environment. There's a lot of deforestation, there's a lot of pollution, so one question would be how through financing and through operations we could both improve efficiency and increase profits and whatnot, but also help with the environment. So this side of and that is an area where we could use a lot more modeling. We could certainly use a lot more data and bridging everything together.
On the research dimension, I think you guys touched upon what is important and what should be done in the next 5 years. I agree with tonight. Better connections with industry, as well as doing more empirical research, looking at the interplay between supply chain financing and societal measures like sustainability, environmental impact. Now, on top of that, besides the research dimension, I think there is a lot work that we must do in the teaching dimension. Now that we are developing all these knowledge, now I think it is time for us to spend a little bit more effort in developing teaching material and educating, the MBA students and executive students, right, about the importance of supply chain management, supply chain financing, how it should be done, and doing a better job maybe in disseminating all these wonderful things that we have been doing in the research dimension and bringing them into the classroom. So I think in the next 5 years, that's what I want to see more happening.
And I would like to build on Noor's point and close with it. I really enjoy the richness of ideas in our community. And I think this is the time where we also put effort to influence practice. And for that, we need to work with companies, we need to work with data, We need to show them what we know, and we should put the extra effort to somewhat close the loop between writing our research papers, developing case studies, and bringing it to the classroom to finally have impact, both for the younger generation as well as executives that make these decisions. And I believe that way, not only our community will get a lot of benefits, but also will give a lot to the broader society as we address, I believe, very important issues. And we have built on a tradition that has been so rich, and we have definitely a huge opportunity right now to impact something that people care a lot. It's a complex issue, but we have the tools, we have the data, we have the computational power to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.